Hello, Rebels. This is Attorney Augustus Corbett, a.k.a. the Minister of Justice, and with me is...
Attorney Chloe Corbett, aka the Duchess of Justice.
And we are the Defiant Lawyers. We provide legal analysis of trending politics, policies, personalities, and pop culture to provide you the legal information you need to defy this unjust legal system. Listen, if you're new to our channel, please subscribe. Also, click the notification bell so you will receive a notification when we upload one of these videos. All right, with that said, I am so delighted to be on the air this morning once again with my beautiful daughter. And I got to be the happiest, proudest man alive, certainly attorney, to have such a brilliant, beautiful daughter practicing law with me. And again, it is an honor to have you on the air with me, Chloe.
Well, thank you so much. That is such an honor to be here. It's a lifelong dream of mine to be able to practice law with you and to fight for justice. And that's something that we do every single day. So it is a blessing to be here, to be in our right minds. But we will be talking about a very tragic event. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families and friends of the 4 high schoolers who were shot this past week in Oxford, Michigan. Yes. And we're going to be discussing that case today. It's such a tragedy, and I am so tired of hearing about these school shootings and the violence that occurs on our schools. So our thoughts and prayers really go out to the parents, the families, the friends of these young men and young women who are on the screen. Yes. And I would like to have just a moment of silence for them. So I wanted to do that because oftentimes with these type of cases, the media and pundits and legal analysts, we tend to focus on the alleged shooters, the alleged defendants, and not put enough emphasis on the loss of life that occurred. So I wanted our thoughts and our prayers to be on those 4 young people who tragically lost their lives this past week. And right now, I want to give a timeline of what occurred, what allegedly occurred, what is being reported in the news, as well as by the county prosecutor, Karen McDonald, at a press conference. She did a very detailed timeline of the investigation that her office, in conjunction with law enforcement, has done. And this is their version of events that led up to that tragic shooting that happened on November 30th.
Now, before you get into that, I do want to highlight the fact that this is the state's version of events. Yes. That these people are still presumed innocent. Yes. Ethan is still presumed innocent. His parents are still presumed innocent. And what we're hearing so far, what we're about to hear from Chloe as she lays out the state's case, or at least the preliminary evidence that they have, again, is just one side of the situation. Okay. Yeah. And I don't say that to in any way dismiss the seriousness of another school shooting. These 4 victims, like we just had on the screen, our hearts go out to them. But we are criminal defense lawyers, and I just wanted to just make sure it's understood that this is the state's version of events, and these folks are still presumed innocent.
That's so important to note, that, because one, we all have a constitutional right. If we are, if the government charges us with a crime, we are presumed innocent. And obviously the state is going to be making their timeline and presenting their case that helps them try to prosecute someone who is accused of a crime. And I watched the arraignment of Ethan Crumbley's parents this morning. I watched the entire thing. And one of the defense attorneys for the parents said that, the prosecution has been out in the media and they've been given, quote, cherry-picked facts. So it's obvious they have an issue, and we would too, with the facts that have been presented by the state to the media, and that obviously we don't have all of the facts whatsoever. And even the county prosecutor, Karen McDonald, in that arraignment, she said, well, we have a duty not to disclose all of the facts that we have, and the facts that we did present, we just presented some of it. So this is not the full truth whatsoever. There are two sides to every story, and these people, they are presumed innocent unless they're found guilty. So to get into the timeline, as again, County Prosecutor Karen McDonald presented at a news conference shortly after the shooting, on November 26, 2021, James Crumbley, who is Ethan Crumbley's father, who is the 15-year-old suspect accused of shooting four students at his high school and injuring 7. James Crumbley allegedly purchased a 9mm Sig Sauer SP 2022 from ACME Shooting Goods in Oxford. And it was reported that a store employee confirmed that Ethan, who was a suspect, was with his father, James Crumbley. This was November 26, 2021. And that also James Crumbley filled out the necessary federal paperwork to purchase the firearm. Subsequently that day, after the father allegedly purchased the firearm, Ethan Crumbley allegedly or supposedly posted photos on his social media of the semi-automatic handgun and put in a caption on social media, quote, "Just got my new beauty today," end quote. And he paired that with some heart emojis as well as a photo with a similar looking gun, and saying that any questions I will answer. So that was November 26, 2021. This is 4 days before the shooting that happened on November 30th. The next day, November 27th, Ethan Crumbley's mother, Jennifer Crumbley, then posts on social media, quote, that she's testing out this new Christmas present. And it was in an apparent reference that is being reported that she was referring to her son and the gift they gave him of the gun that I mentioned before, that they purchased for Ethan the day before. A couple days later, on November 29th, a teacher at Oxford High School allegedly saw that Ethan was searching for ammunition on his cell phone during class. And after she supposedly saw him searching for the ammunition, she reported this episode to school officials. Keep in mind, this is one day. This is the day prior before the shooting on November 30th. And once school officials got that report that he was searching for ammunition on his phone, they left Ethan's parents a voicemail, and they told Ethan's parents supposedly about the internet search. Okay. They also supposedly followed up that voicemail to Ethan's parents with an email, but they're reporting that they received no response from Jennifer or James Crumbley. So this is the day before the shooting. Let's get to the shooting. It was also reported that Ethan's mother, Jennifer, exchanged text messages about the incident with her son on the day before the shooting, and she said, quote, "LOL, I'm not mad at you. You have to learn not to get caught," end quote. So it was reported that once she found out that he was searching for ammunition, she sent that text message to her son. So let's go to November 30th, the day of the shooting. So a teacher at Oxford High School again apparently sees a note that apparently belonged to Ethan that alarmed her, and the note apparently had a drawing of a semi-automatic gun pointing at the words, quote, "The thoughts won't stop, help me," end quote. So this is the day of the shooting. In another section of the note, it was reported that this teacher saw that there was a drawing of a bullet, and above the drawing, the words, quote, "blood everywhere," end quote. So subsequent to this teacher finding that note with those disturbing imagery, with those disturbing words, she reported again to school officials about this disturbing imagery, and the school had Ethan's parents come out to the school. This was around 10 a.m. on November 30th, about 2.5 hours before the shooting took place. A school counselor reported, and again, was all detailed in a press conference by County Prosecutor Karen McDonald. But according to their version of events, a school counselor came to Ethan's classroom, brought him out with his backpack, and the school counselor, Ethan, his parents, and other school officials had a meeting around 10 a.m. The counselor obtained the drawing that the teacher saw and took a picture of, but apparently Ethan had started to alter it before they had the meeting with the counselor and all of the other school officials. At that meeting, school personnel told Jennifer and James that they had 48 hours to take Ethan to seek psychiatric counseling. And they wanted his parents to take him home. But reportedly, Jennifer and James refused to take Ethan home. And so the school officials allowed Ethan to go back to class. Now, again, it was reported at the news conference by Karen McDonald, the county prosecutor, as well as a sheriff's news conference that I saw, that Ethan's backpack was not searched, that Jennifer and James may have known that the gun was already there. And if this shooting took place 2 hours after that meeting, he had to have had, it can be assumed and speculated that Ethan had to have had the gun in his backpack already. So after that meeting, when the parents refused to take him home, he was sent back to class. And unfortunately, 2 hours later, a little after noon, is when Ethan allegedly went into the classroom. Into the hallways at Oxford High School and started to fire. It was reported by law enforcement officials that he had about 30 rounds in his possession, and he fired about 18 rounds. And 4 students were killed and 7 were injured. So that is a lot to unpack. There was a lot of liability and culpability that needs to be analyzed. And Dad, I want to take it over to you, and I want to ask you, in your opinion, one, is it unusual for the county prosecutor to charge Jennifer and James Crumbley for involuntary manslaughter? And 2, what do you think is the basis of her charging them with that?
Yes, I think it's very unusual. I can't say that I've ever heard of such charges before. Typically, involuntary manslaughter charges have to do with perhaps somebody driving a car, and speeding, or perhaps intoxicated, and someone is killed, or someone is perhaps horseplaying with a firearm, or some sort of unintentional behavior is usually where this kind of charge comes. In fact, let me see. I think we have so I presume the prosecutor brought these charges based on the text messages, based on the fact that the parents were summoned to the school, as you just laid out, and they didn't do what the prosecutor felt reasonable parents would have done, which is to...
Can I add this real quick, Dad? I don't mean to cut you off, but there's something that I left out.
Okay.
When you mentioned text messages from Ethan's parents, that is very important, that the prosecutor reported. So apparently after the news of the active shooter at Oxford High School went public, Jennifer Crumbley texted Ethan and said, quote, "Ethan, don't do it," end quote. Okay. And then a few minutes later, about 15 minutes later at 1:37 p.m., James Crumbley, Ethan's father, called 911 and reported that a gun was missing from his house, and he believed that his son may be the shooter. The gun, it was the same gun apparently purchased by James Crumbley on November 26, 4 days before, and it was reportedly stored unlocked in a drawer in the bedroom that he shared with his wife. And officials reported that the gun recovered from the shooter at the school was the same gun as what James Crumbley reported to 911. So I wanted to make sure I threw that in there because you were going right down the line, probably into the prosecutor's thinking.
Yes. So again, involuntary manslaughter is the unintentional killing of another person based largely on criminal negligence. So all the stuff that the prosecutor laid out that you just narrated provides the basis in the prosecutor's mind for negligence, thus for the involuntary manslaughter charges against the parents. Specifically, I mean, I would think that the DA is thinking several things. Purchasing the gun and then making it very accessible to a 15-year-old child. And not only accessible, it sounds like they bought the gun for Ethan, which brings me to another issue, Chloe, and that is, I don't know what Michigan law is, but under federal law, and I'm going to read it here, federal law basically says that licensed firearm dealers cannot sell guns to persons who are under 21 years old for handguns and under 18 years old for long guns. And then as far as possessing firearms for underage persons, federal law requires that a person be at least 18 years of age in order to possess a handgun or ammunition for a handgun. Now, I don't know what Michigan's law is, so I won't even go there. But there could be some federal firearm violations as well, given the fact that Ethan was only 15 years old. Mm-hmm. So, back to these parents. If they made this gun, if they gave him the gun or purchased it for him, and then and based on some of the things that you and the prosecutor that the prosecutor alleged, the fact that the mom said that basically that they had bought the gun for Ethan, and Ethan to have said, bragging on this beauty that he just received from his parents, it appears that the parents, either bought it for him or made it accessible to him. Whether that is a violation of Michigan law, I don't know. But it could very well be a violation of federal law. I don't know that either, but it could be. All right. And then when the school summons the parents to come because Ethan allegedly is searching for ammunition on his phone during school, and a teacher sees that, and they called the parents, and I think you said the parents initially didn't even respond.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's what was reported.
Yeah, didn't even respond. And then, wasn't that the day before the shooting?
November 29th.
Okay. And then the day of the shooting, they found that photo that you were talking about, and they summons the parents back to the school again, and the parents this time basically refused to take him out of school, left him in school with the book bag, which, as you said, we can assume that in that book bag was that firearm, that Sig Sauer that you told us about. All of that, forms the basis for the prosecutor to say there was big time negligence here with those parents. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where those charges are coming from the parents. But back to your question, is it unusual? yes, it's still very unusual for this type of charge because, again, we usually see it in the context of, driving intoxicated while you're intoxicated or speeding and killing somebody. Again, you don't intend to kill anyone, but someone was killed because of your negligent behavior. That's typically when you would see involuntary manslaughter. In fact, I had this to occur in my family. My youngest brother, my baby brother, Michael Corbett, was killed when the facts that we got were that a friend of his was cleaning a rifle, and the rifle went off. Those are the facts that we received as the family. And my brother Michael was killed from that gunshot wound. The bullet pierced his heart, killing him almost immediately. So I'm familiar with the involuntary manslaughter statute on a personal level, and as an attorney. So that's why I believe they probably brought these charges based on the preliminary information that the DA has released so far. I want to also mention the fact that the defense lawyers, which we are right to be concerned that the prosecutor is out there already laying out her case, tainting the jury pool. She gets to shoot first. Well, I won't use that analogy, but she gets to go first in her prosecution of the case. And so we expect that there will be motions to change venue, and there may even be a gag order at some point down the road. As criminal defense lawyers, we'd have some of the same concerns.
Yeah, we would. And watching that arraignment, it seems like they have a very aggressive criminal defense attorneys representing them. I know one attorney's name is Shannon Smith, and the other attorney's name, it slips me. It's two female attorneys. They were very outspoken in defense of their clients at this arraignment hearing with the judge. And one of the things that they also brought up is at the arraignment hearing, for our audience, the judge set the bond for Jennifer and James Crumbley at $500,000 cash surety bond each. And they could not put 10% down or hire a bond company to put 10% down to be released. They would have to pay $500,000 each in cash in order to make bail. And then she attached various bond conditions with it. And one of the reasons that she said she attached it was because of in her mind, their flight risk and the fact that they were supposed to turn themselves in yesterday at 4 p.m., but they did not. They were apprehended overnight, and then they had arraignment this morning. Well, one of the defense attorneys shot back and said, well, we reached out to County Prosecutor Karen McDonald. We texted her. We let her know that we're representing Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley, and we were not made aware that arraignment was at 4 p.m. While she was out speaking with the media, and we're trying to get in contact with her, she responded that we would be speaking. We were not aware that there was a 4 p.m. arraignment. So there was some back and forth with that. So the Crumbleys, they have a very aggressive female criminal defense team who seems like they're going to be speaking up for them and, trying to protect their constitutional rights, because they do have constitutional rights. And it is their criminal defense attorneys to have undivided loyalty to their clients and make sure that the state does not infringe on their constitutional rights by bringing these allegations against them.
Yes. So, I think that we have to withhold judgment. Again, there is the presumption of innocence. With the young man, I think his guilt is going to be much easier for the state to to establish, to prove. The parents, the state may have a tough case against them. Michigan is, and this comes into play as well. Michigan is a huge, guns rights state. The prosecutor made the statement, and I think I heard her make the statement that she was trying to send a message to gun owners. That's going to come off or sound like to some people like she is one of these pro-gun control folks. All of that, will come into play in this thing with her trying to send a message to gun owners. Now, the fact that the defense lawyers are very aggressive and zealous in their representation of their clients, we fully expect that. Yesterday it was reported, I saw the sheriff do an interview, and he said basically that, as you pointed out, they had missed arraignment and they were fugitives. And the defense attorney said, no, they are not fugitives. They are not running. They left town for their safety, and they're going to turn themselves in. Various news outlets, however, reported that when the police found them, they found them hiding. That doesn't bode very well for the argument that they were going to turn themselves in if they were caught hiding. But we don't know. All this stuff is being reported. The facts are going to come out. The lawyers are going to make sure that their clients get due process. And so we got to withhold judgment. Now, lastly, I know that you are excited and fired up to see a couple of female attorneys who are going hard for their clients. That's that girl power, right? That's what I pray and hope that your mom and I were able to instill in you. To be strong, and do your thing.
Yeah, I love seeing that. The judge is a woman, the county prosecutor is a woman, the two defense attorneys are women. So there are women all up in this thing for this case, showing out and practicing law and doing what is required of them in each of their roles. The judge being a fair and just a middle arbiter, the county prosecutor doing her duty, as well as the criminal defense attorneys. There's a couple more topics I want to move into, Dad.
Okay.
I want to talk about the school officials and whether or not they have any culpability, any negligence, because, they had information apparently that there was some violent imagery that Ethan was, drawing having access to ammunition, drawing these photos. Is there any culpability? And why didn't the school officials or the school officers search Ethan's backpack? Because that brings up some constitutional issues, whether or not there was probable cause to search the backpack. Why didn't they search the backpack? But before we get into that, I want to talk briefly about Ethan being charged as an adult, even though he's only 15. So like you said before, we don't practice in Michigan, but here in Texas, juveniles can be certified as adults and tried in adult criminal courts for certain felony offenses, whether it be capital felony, first-degree felony, or third-degree felony. Typically, if a juvenile is 15 years or older and is charged with the felonies that I mentioned above, the state can seek to certify them as adults and have their cases transferred out of the juvenile court system and into the adult court system. And here in Texas, Texas juvenile courts, they try to rehabilitate juveniles as much as possible. It's not as much about trying the juvenile or trying to get a conviction, but how can we rehabilitate the juvenile? And there's various protections, there's various programs that are offered to juveniles that are charged with crimes from misdemeanors on up to felonies. But in certain cases, the prosecutors can try to certify them as adults and have their cases transferred to adult criminal court, where there's not as many protections and the focus is not as much on rehabilitation as in juvenile court. So apparently here apparently in Ethan's case in Michigan, the judge, determined that I think it was 24 counts of murder, terrorism, and other charges qualified him to be tried as an adult. And his case would not be heard in a Michigan juvenile court, but in an adult court. Well, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, different jurisdictions handle that issue differently. I know in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, for example, kids, I think juveniles, and I could be wrong, but I believe I'm right about this. I believe juveniles start out as adults when they offend, and you have to have a hearing to get them into the juvenile court system. So at some point, so they start out as adults, and then you do the reverse of what we do here in Texas. As you pointed out, we here in Texas, they start out as juveniles, and they have to be certified, have to have a hearing and all of that before they're certified. Perhaps in Michigan, they start out as adults, or there is a very quick process where they can immediately be charged as adults. We don't know Michigan law, but there is that big distinction. Once again, here in Texas, they start out as juveniles, and the state has to get the judge to certify them as adults, and that usually doesn't happen immediately upon them being charged. That usually takes some time. Whereas in other jurisdictions, they start out as adults and have to have a hearing to get it back into the juvenile court.
Yeah, and you've handled hundreds of juvenile cases, Dad, and I handle a lot now. Have you ever seen, how often have you seen where prosecutors here in Texas have tried to certify juveniles as an adult?
It's not often.
You don't hear about it.
Yeah, it's not often. At least not here in Dallas County, where we primarily practice. And I think you're absolutely right that the juvenile system here tries to rehabilitate juveniles. The judges here, again, at least in Dallas County and from the surrounding counties that we've done juvenile cases, they try to, rehabilitate the juvenile. Now there are some times where, look, the charge is so egregious that the judges will certify them as adult, and they are tried and prosecuted as adults. But it doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah, I agree. So let's move into the school officials, because there's been a lot of chatter.
The legal issues here. This is one that we were, of course, heartbroken to hear about another school shooting and 4 victims. And the legal issues, though, we wanted to really get into because there are so many legal issues here in this shooting. Let's get into that.
The school officials, I think they hold some culpability for what happened. I think that at least civilly, I would not be surprised if the families of the young people who were tragically killed filed lawsuits against the school district and the school officials.
Oh, you can assume that.
Yeah, and you can presume it. I think it's more than assume. We presume.
Yeah, well, exactly
that there would be civil. There would be a rebuttable presumption, as it says in the law.
Yes.
That there will be lawsuits against the school officials, because they knew 2 hours before that this young man had been drawing violent imagery with pictures of guns, saying, I can't help my thoughts, help me. Searching for ammunition the day before the shooting, and they allowed him to go back in class.
Well,
but
let me just say, as a former school teacher, that there are a lot of school regulations, school laws that teachers got to follow, that the principal got to follow, and school systems are very political. You know, they are political animals, unlike so many other entities. And then there's the issue of sovereign immunity. You know, it is hard to sue schools in many jurisdictions. So, you know, the prosecutor certainly left that open. I mean, that's it. It seems like it's still on the table when she was asked about it, and it may happen. Could very well happen. I think the prosecutor is not only coming at this from being a prosecutor, but I think on a personal level, she's also coming at it from being a mother. Yeah. And rightfully so. I mean, we are human beings as attorneys, and so I don't know. Teachers, principals, guidance counselors who were involved in this matter, you know, may have some shield, may have some protection. I just don't know. I'm not familiar with Michigan law. Now the school resource officers, what we call them here in Texas, but we're talking about the licensed police officers who are typically on campus. Now, what that person's culpability is, we don't know. We do remember the school shooting in Florida, where a bunch of kids were mowed down with an semi-automatic rifle. That resource officer, folks said that he wasn't aggressive in trying to get at that shooter, and he was, you know, fired, and I believe he was fired and ostracized, and so there may be more culpability with the school resource officer than the teachers and the principals. I don't know, but
on that point, that the school resource officer for that school, it was reported that he came out, or his supervisor came out and said, well, we didn't know about the meetings that the school officials had with the ammunition and with the drawings and stuff. So I don't know if that's true. He or she may be trying to protect themselves, their department, but it was reported, I read, that they said they had no idea about any of these meetings. They were not informed.
In fact, I heard the sheriff say that as well, that they were not, this never got to them. So they were kind of kept out of the loop on this. Now, listen, if that was me and this kid was in my classroom, I would not have accepted him back in my classroom. Okay. Nope. I mean, you're sitting here looking for bullets, and you got these pictures here. I would have had a problem with any principal telling me that this kid can come back to my classroom. Okay. No, he doesn't need to be in my classroom. Not at all. He needs some help. If the parents are not willing to give him some help, then he needs to sit out there with the guidance counselor or somebody. But I don't want him back in my classroom.
Well, that begs the question, why did no one search the backpack? Why did no one look in his backpack? And it kind of brings a juxtaposition between his constitutional rights versus, the right for him to be searched, to have probable cause and all of that. And you were about to say something about that?
No, you mentioned that earlier in your question, that there are some constitutional rights issues that he has. The U.S. Supreme Court has said that students don't leave their constitutional rights at the door. Yes, they do have rights. I guess it could be strongly argued that there was probable cause to search that backpack.
I agree.
Yeah. Given the fact that he had written that note and searching for ammunition, at least, what we call a Terry stop. At least, let me just, investigate a little more. But I think a good argument could have been made that there was probable cause.
And then that also begs the question. We know that some schools have implemented where you have to go through metal detectors to make sure there's no weapons on campus. I don't know if this school has that, but if you have to go through a metal detector and you can't bring a weapon on campus, to me that begs the question or the consideration. Okay, you knew that this young man was drawn out of this violent imagery. Why did you not investigate further? And if it was true that the school resource officer was not made aware of it, why did you all not make him or her aware of it as all? So I place a lot of blame on these school officials. I think and I know with the sovereign immunity, just like you detailed, it's hard to, especially in civil courts, to hold government officials accountable, and maybe go after them personally. But I do think that they should try, and I think that the district needs to implement different policies to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Well, so that you don't have a student carrying a gun in a backpack with all of these issues.
Well, I think you just identified. What we need to do now. We need to argue the verdict here. This is a perfect situation. So let me just do this. All right, now, so we're going to take a few minutes and do and argue our points here, and I want to specifically lay out what we're arguing. You're saying that you see some culpability on the part of school officials. I'm taking somewhat of a different approach. Again, largely because I was a school teacher. So you have the burden of proof. You go first.
May it please the court, opposing counsel. Judge, the school officials in this case knew that they had a student that had looked up imagery of ammunition on his phone the day before the shooting. The school officials in this case knew that 2 to 3 hours before the shooting that they had taken imagery of him having a firearm and ammunition that he had drawn. They knew that he had captioned it with words saying, "I can't help my thoughts, help me." They knew that something could occur because of that violent imagery that had occurred. And it is on the school officials to protect all of the students and faculty and personnel who go to their school every single day. When a parent drops their child off at school, they have the peace of mind that the school will do whatever it takes to make sure that their child is protected. And the school officials knew about this imagery. They knew about the state of mind of this young man. And instead of investigating further, instead of suspending him, they allowed him to go back into the classroom. We've seen school officials where students have been suspended, especially black and brown students have been suspended for a lot less. And instead of doing that here, they allowed him to go back into the classroom. They did not search his backpack and subsequently, unfortunately, he went into their halls and shot 18 rounds, killing 4 students and injuring at least 7 others. So, Your Honor, we ask that you hold the school officials liable for this shooting and culpable as well. Thank you.
Judge, we completely disagree with counsel here. We are certainly saddened by the tragic deaths of these 4 young people. But to hold the school officials culpable, I mean, is preposterous, to be honest with you. This young man brought a gun to school, and he did the shooting. None of the teachers had any part with that shooting. And besides, this young man, even as reprehensible as his actions turned out to be, still had constitutional rights. The U.S. Supreme Court has said that students do not leave their constitutional rights at the door. And so we needed to have probable cause to search him. And even if there was probable cause to search him, that was the responsibility of the resource officer. That's why we have the resource officer on campus. We are not law enforcement officers. We are teachers. And once the decision was made by the resource officer not to search his backpack, and once the school officials, by the school officials, I mean the principals or whoever made that decision to send him back to the classroom, it was pretty much out of our hands as teachers, okay? As teachers. We thought at that point, our clients thought at that point that the matter had been resolved. Whatever needed to happen had happened in the office. The resource officer had done his job, and we thought that they were sending back to us a young man who had been checked out, who had been searched if necessary, if there was legal cause for it. And so now to try and put this on us or put this on our clients is again just preposterous. So we would ask you to find that that the teachers, especially the teachers, are not culpable for the deaths of these 4 young people.
Just a brief rebuttal, Your Honor. Let's just break down negligence. As this court knows, negligence, there's 4 elements: duty, breach of duty, causation, and damages. And we maintain that the school officials, including the teachers, had a duty to protect the students and other faculty in that school. And they breached that duty when they allowed Ethan Crumbley back into class without doing further investigation, getting the school resource officer involved, sending him home, doing something else. They breached that duty. And because they breached that duty, they proximately caused the deaths of 4 students and injuries of multiple others. So we will ask that the court finds that the school officials, including the teachers, are liable on the basis of negligence. Thank you.
Very briefly, to hear counsel say that the school officials caused the death of these, the tragic death of these four students, just sent chills down my spine. It was Ethan who caused the death of these kids. And the argument could be made that his parents contributed to that. But these hardworking teachers, to say that they caused the death of these 4 kids is beyond the pale. And I really find it personally offensive on behalf of my clients. So I just wanted to say that, Your Honor. All right. There we go. Yeah. Yes. So, Chloe, I think you did very well.
You too, Dad. You too.
I appreciate it.
Bringing out the fact that as a former teacher and just teachers, they are hardworking and they're not law enforcement. They don't carry guns. They're not trained in that. I think that's an excellent point.
Yeah. So we'll let the rebels decide who won that debate. You all in your comments, let us know who prevailed.
Let us know. We want to know.
Yeah, I know it's going to probably be you. Every time we do one of these things, you get more positive comments than I do. So I about know how this is going to go. But I gave a spirited defense of the teachers because, again, I've been in those classrooms. And, you know, to hold the teachers accountable like that, I just have strong, dubious feelings about that.
Yeah, but I respect teachers so much. They're underpaid usually, and the impact that they have on children's lives is indescribable. So I respect teachers. All the teachers who are watching, we respect you so much.
Absolutely. Now, the bad teachers, we want to get them out of the classroom.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
100%. Yes. Yes.
In fact, I wish I had a copy of my book.
I know this would be perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a book, you all, entitled Education and Justice, How Public Schools Fail African-American Males. It's on Amazon, and you can also go to our website. I don't have anything prepared to pull up right now, but if you go to our website, educationandjustice.com, or if you go to Amazon and search for Education and Justice, the book will come up, and you can get a copy. I don't really address this type of issue, but it's still a good book for your library.
It is, and we will put the Amazon link in the description once we're done with this video. And look, obviously, this is my dad. I may seem biased, but this is the amount of work and research that he put into researching public schools, the education system as a whole, the No Child Left Behind Act, the laws that apply to schools has been tremendous and immense. And I really feel like you will get a lot from it if you add this book to your library. So the link will be in the description. I'm at the bottom of this video.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chloe. Thank you so much. So we have come to the tail end of this thing. We've discussed many of the issues that are involved in this tragic incident. Facts are going to continue to come out. If we get some facts wrong or whatnot, please forgive us. I mean, this is an ongoing developing case, but based on what was being reported, we gave you our legal analysis. We'll probably be doing updates as the story unfolds. But look, I enjoyed it. I always enjoy doing this with you, Chloe. I look forward to the next time.
I do as well. This has been a pleasure. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you all again, Rebels, for staying with us and watching this video. We will see you again next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.